So, I just decided for the hell of it, I'm just going to review Iron Man Armor Wars, because I don't think I've ever reviewed an Iron Man comic on here before. No, I don't think I have. Nope, none that I can think of. Because here's what I've learned about Iron Man comics. This is what I've learned about the Iron Man comics in every single run. 90% of the time, it goes as followed. Tony builds a new suit of armor. He has a mental breakdown caused by a villain or by his own machinations. He proceeds to have this said mental breakdown that causes him to destroy everything in his life, his company, his friends' lives, and his superhero contacts. He puts himself back together and builds a new armor to signify that. There. That is every Iron Man story ever. That is exactly that is 90% of the time every Iron Man story. From Demon in a Bottle to Extremist to this. It is the same frickin' thing. Every time. Now, yes, I know there are some exceptions to the rule, but yeah, that's generally how a vast majority of Iron Man comics go. And this is no different. Having said that, though, I do kind of like this comic. I do kind of enjoy this Iron Man story. Now, for those who are unaware of what this comic is about, the story is that Tony has discovered that a villain called the Spy Master has stolen his armor's technology and has sold it on the black market to a vast array of supervillains, most of them being his own rogues gallery. And he decides to take it into his own hands to get back his armor that was stolen from him and destroy it, and before anyone can do any real harm with it. Now, if you're a major fan of like Iron Man and like a vast menagerie of villains, this is a comic for you. What's interesting though is that Iron Man goes to the extreme. Tony goes to the extreme almost instantly. Really, he really just hits, like, not even thinking about it. He's like, I've got to do this alone. I don't need the government. I can't depend on them. I can't depend on the Avengers either. This is something I got to do alone. Whoosh. And yeah. So if you're a major Iron Man fan and you enjoy like villains like the Raiders, the Controller, Titanium Man and Crimson Dynamo, they're all in here. It's pretty much like a Iron Man greatest hits, but without the Mandarin. Or we do get Justin Hammer, who was the one who Spy Master sold the armor to, and he's the one who auctioned it off to the other villains. We even get other villains like the Beetle in here for a hot minute. But on a whole, this story is more about Tony doing what Tony does best, having a mental breakdown and basically destroying everything in his life. Because like I said, he just hits the gas on the whole, I'm going to take back everything that is mine. That was some bold words, Tony. And Rhodey and Hogan and everyone else is like, dude, you've got to stop this, or at least, call in the Avengers. And he's like, no, I can't depend on my friends for this. Also, the other thing is that what's interesting in here is that early on, Tony makes the mistake of attacking a superhero called the Stingray, which he believes has his armor. And rather than try to talk it out sensibly, and I will admit this was on Stingray's part too, is that when he's like, hey, just give me your armor, Tony's like, hey, just give me your armor, and I will, look it over to see if it's from my tech, and, everything will be fine. And Stingray's like, no, dude, this is government property. The Stingray armor is government property. I can't give this to you. And he's like, no, the government, if it belongs to Tony Stark, because this is a time period, for those who are unaware, this is a time period when everyone thought Tony Stark and Iron Man were two different people. Everyone thought he was just Iron Man's bodyguard. Iron Man was Tony's bodyguard, who worked also for the Avengers. So in this comic, getting back to what I was saying, he's like, no, I've gone through the government circuits and they take forever. Give me that armor. And he's like, no. And Stingray just goes, no, and jumps into the water. He's like, God damn it. And Tony goes in after him, which he makes the discovery of like, oh my God, it's not my armor. And I just attacked a government agent and a reserve member of the Avengers. Oops. Oopsie doopsie. But there is some cool moments in here, like, of course, Iron Man trying to take on Dynamo and Titanium Man together while in his stealth suit armor, because he knows if he gets caught in the Soviet Union, then he's in a international fuckwater, more or less. And you don't want to be caught in international fuckwater, let me tell you, which Tony nearly gets caught in. But this is the big thing, is that what I never understood about this comic and never understood about Tony on a whole is that he always goes to the extreme so fast. That's the problem, is that he never, that was the same thing with Civil War, where he really took the whole extremes way too quickly. And yeah, I know in the Matt Fraction run, when towards the end of it, he's like, yeah, if I had, I'd still do it, but I would have done it differently. But still, that's the thing with Tony, and they kind of touch on it here in Armor Wars a bit, where they kind of explore maybe Tony's just a little psychotic, because he seems to be, the more he gets into his armor, the more he lets himself go, which is the epilogue piece, which is done by beautiful artwork. It's the same, I can't remember the artist's name, but it's the same artist who did the entire Wolverine Weapon X comic, which explained how Wolverine got the adamantium in his body, until that got retconned in some case. Did it get retconned? I can't remember. But yeah, that epilogue piece of the artwork of Tony having this horrible nightmare of him becoming more and more like Iron Man, and the death and destruction it leads, is beautifully done. But it does kind of paint this picture of, maybe Tony's totally out of it? This is why he keeps building the armor, is because he's trying to hide himself from the world? That might be the case, but they never really go full on into it. This is just Tony trying to get back his armor, doing everything wrong for the right intentions. Going back to the whole, the road to hell is paved with good intentions. I mean, he even takes on Steve Rogers, and it's funny, because in the trade I have, it shows each cover for each comic, and he's like, Iron Man versus the Captain. This is the point where he was not calling himself Captain America, and he's like, Steve Rogers and Iron Man, friends no more. And I was like, oh, you just wait until Civil War shows up, then come back to me and tell me on the whole friends no more thing. And yes, I know they're back to being friends, but I was thinking to myself, where it's like, yeah, Iron Man and Captain America's relationship doesn't exactly, it's a very on again, off again relationship, isn't it? But that's kind of the thing. And the other thing about this is that he uses the Silver Centron armor, which I really dig. I really dig the Silver Centron armor. And the whole thing is that it was supposed to signify that was Tony's last armor. The Silver Centron armor was supposed to be the final Iron Man suit, because silver is supposed to represent calm and peace. And that was the whole driving point of the Silver Centron armor. But, of course, Tony builds another Iron Man suit, which actually, the Iron Man suit you see at the end of this comic, fighting the final villain called Firepower, is actually a lot like I think that's the Iron Man suit and design they used for the 90s cartoon. I am pretty sure that's, because I looked at it the first time and I went, is that the same Iron Man suit design they used in the Iron Man 90s cartoon? Shit, I think it is. But that's kind of, like I said, the whole point of Iron Man is Tony goes, Tony thinks everything's alright in his life, and then he discovers something's horrible, and he blames himself, destroys everything from his company and his relations with his friends, and his armors, and has this big revelation, and rinse and repeat. That's like I said, that's 90% Iron Man stories. But I still enjoyed this. There's some great action pieces. There's some great moments to explore Tony's psyche in here, and how and it really shows off Tony's intelligence, especially like parts when Tony has to outsmart, Nick Fury and the agents and the other agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. because they have mandroids, which are Iron Man-esque suits that can take on the Hulk. And he has to outsmart everyone, and he actually makes this big foolproof plan of saving himself from keeping everyone, his identity as Tony Stark and Iron Man separate by making up this totally other person, just on a whim. It's pretty cool how he plans that whole plan, so intricately. I'm totally stumbling over my words. I apologize. like I said, it's a fun comic, but there are some shaky points to it. Like I said, it does go from A to B, like, drop of a hat. And there are some plot holes in here, like, why don't you just ask for the armors, like the guardsman armor, or, you know, ask for the Stingray armor? Instead of going out and attacking these people, just go as Tony Stark and just be like, hey, I think some tech of mine is lost. Can I see that real quick? And just make sure that bad guys haven't, like, bugged it or done something evil to it, you know? Yeah, well, you know, that's the whole thing, is that he could have gone just as Tony Stark and gone, hey, look, the armors I sold to you, or that were sold to you by my competitors or myself, might be compromised. I just need to make a quick recall real quick. That could have been that could have ended a lot of pain and suffering, I'm just saying. But anyway, so you guys tell me in the comments below, what did you guys think of Iron Man Armor Wars? Just, would you guys like it? Did you guys hate it? Comment below, let me know. Once again, hope you all enjoyed this, and I'm out.